Hi guys, good morning everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the Editorial Edge. I'm Bhuvan once again. Very quickly, if you can hear me all right, see me all right, just let me know in the chat so that I can begin very quickly. We have a very important topic today. Today's topic will actually enable you to understand a variety of op-eds that have been published, and op-eds and editorials have been published on this topic at an industrial scale. Everyone is writing on this, so we should have a fair idea of what we are doing, what we are reading about. So very quickly, just let me know in the chat and then we shall begin. Hi Madhusudan. Okay, good for letting me know. Thanks for letting me know. Okay, so very quickly, before we begin, just a quick good morning coder. Alekha, how are you? So just a quick thank you to Ajay. Okay, he left me a message on yesterday's video, and more often than not people say no that LOL. So more often than not, it's not a laughing out loud sentiment. More often you will be just chuckling, but you'll write LOL. But that statement by Ajay yesterday in the comment box, yeah, that made me actually go LOL. So thank you for making my day, Ajay. Okay. Good morning, Rian. Ajay, you are here. Good morning. Okay. So we'll begin the topic for the day. So first we are looking at BRICS, okay? Because again, the BRICS summit is going to happen next month. No, in the month of August. So next month, yeah. It's going to happen in August in South Africa. Good morning, Sirisha, Rian, hi everyone. Okay, so it's going to happen in South Africa next month in August, Durban. If you have seen these recent videos, where this Western journalist is asking the South African representative that will you arrest Vladimir Putin when he comes to South Africa on international war crimes and all of that. And so that South African representative gives the Western journalist like a master class in diplomatic immunity and how that works. Okay, so we should understand BRICS. And more specifically, we'll focus on two things. So there is a debate right now on the expansion of the BRICS membership. Okay. So we'll see what are the connotations of that. What does it mean individually for both, say, India and China, the two major players. Okay. What are the problems with, say, having new members? What's the advantage of having new members? And what is India's challenge there? We should identify that. So we'll look at membership. And the other thing that is gaining traction is the BRICS currency. Or that BRICS now from a forum of, say, cooperation between nations should now look towards going the European Union way. You know how European Union is considered to be a monetary union. So BRICS should also pursue that goal. So we'll see what are the pitfalls, what's the bright side of the whole thing and what's obviously the dark side of the whole thing. Hi Avi, thanks for letting me know. Hi, good morning Bulbul, welcome. All right. Okay, so we'll begin with this. And the next one is, see, this is a main course, obviously. Every topic, one topic we do in deep dive. So this is going to be a main topic. And then we'll look at religious syncretism. There was a very interesting photo that caught my eye. I have been to that place, in fact. I have stayed in that town for a long period of my career, so I know about it. So I'll show you a picture, which is essentially to do with religious syncretism, So how, say, two faiths converge together and exist in harmony. And there is no problems. See, so it's like a very pertinent photo, and obviously the concept of religious syncretism is important for you, say, not just in the art and culture paper, but also in the essay paper, okay? Because given that UPSC likes philosophical topics in essays, one would be best advised to at least know about religious syncretism. Okay, so let's get into it, guys. No point delaying. There's a lot of it to do. Okay, so firstly, BRICS. What is BRICS? BRICS is essentially an informal, like a forum, okay? And so right now, since their advent in, say, the 2000s, okay, since their advent in the 2000s, they have always looked for cooperation in certain areas. So one is obviously political cooperation, okay. One is cooperation in energy, okay, in environment, right? See, the safe ones. It looks for like a political cooperation in these areas. But now its role is changing, okay, especially in the context of, say, the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The geopolitical strains that arise out of there. So now you are finding a host of these middle income nations that are now vying to get into BRICS. So we'll see what is their motivation also. Hi Pratik, good morning. Okay. So Brazil, Russia, India, China, they're among the world's 10 largest countries by population, area and GDP. And the latter three are widely considered to be the emerging superpowers. So you're looking at, say, India and China, obviously, I will be in that whole conversation around emerging superpowers. But you have South Africa that joined this forum in 2010. First, you had the BRIC. First, it was formed as BRIC. Okay. But then eventually South Africa also entered with the backing of China that time. Okay. So thereafter, the BRICS was originally identified for the purpose of highlighting investment opportunities and had not been a formal intergovernmental organization. See how it was conceived at, that we'll just coexist to make sure that we can increase nation investment. Okay. That it will be a highway for pitching new investment, making sure that you can clear those hurdles, these regulatory hurdles, and quickly benefit, mutual benefit of both parties, the investor and the one that is getting invested in. So that was the original thought process. Now in 2023, the BRICS are considered the foremost geopolitical rival to the G7 bloc. You see how this is shaping up now? G7, if you have seen recently in the Hiroshima summit that happened, you had the Western nations. Obviously, India was invited, but it was the whole focus, the whole power, of G7 lies with the Western nations. So it's a representative body, or considered to be a representative body of the global North. Now you have the global South that has come up with its own representative body to rival it. Okay. So see the South versus North debate, no? The connotations of it exist in every sector. You will realize that if you just form like a cheat sheet, say North versus South, and you start making on different sectors, you will find bodies that are doing the exact opposite of each other. Okay. So it's a direct rivalry, in fact. We'll realize that. So BRICS initiatives, now make a note of this. Okay. Because questions will arise out of this. UPSC is not going to ask you BRICS kab form hua tha, kab nahi hua tha. Hi Arka, good morning everyone. Okay. UPSC is not going to ask you BRICS kab form hua tha, original members kaun the. That is too basic. Know about it, but let's focus on what it does now. So you have the New Development Bank. Look at it now. The NDB. What essentially it does is do the work of IMF and World Bank without the hassle that comes with working with IMF and World Bank. Okay. You will straight away realize that IMF and World Bank, if they are going to give you money, they are going to demand something in return. What is that going to be? Structural changes in your economy. They'll come and they'll tell you, we are the big boss, we know it better than you, go ahead, do this. Okay. So that infringes or impinges the sovereignty of that particular country. You risk upsetting the country also. See, consider the IMF-Pakistan thing. Now, obviously, it's justified. Whatever the IMF is asking Pakistan to do is justified. But in certain cases, you have what the IMF has asked countries to do, which was not justified. Too much. So that unnecessary hassle, look at it. New Development Bank has come up with this. Then you have the contingent reserve arrangement, which is essentially that IMF's emergency bailout, no? The IMF bailout, it's a direct rival of that arrangement. That BRICS will help you do that. You see? Then you have the BRICS payment system, the BRICS joint statistical publication, and the BRICS basket of reserve currency. These are the major initiatives of BRICS. We will take a look at all of them. Okay? Fair enough. Are you understanding till so far right now? Make a note of this particular point, okay? So questions can be framed from here. So CRA arrangement has been started by BRICS or some G7, G20, 4 options. Straight away you should know that the contingent reserve arrangement has been started by BRICS. Okay, it's an MCQ here. Okay, let's go forward. So next month you have South Africa that will host the leaders of BRICS. All of these leaders will converge in Durban. Okay, Durban mein ho raha hai ye summit. So they'll be going to Durban, and what's on the agenda? The creation of the new BRICS currency. Whether that will happen, if at all that will happen, what will be the way it will work forward, all of that. Plus a debate on membership expansion. So 2 key things that we should know from the mains perspective. Okay, it's absolutely desired that you should know these 2 things from the mains perspective. Now let's look at this. The BRICS summit comes as countries across the world are confronting a changing geopolitical landscape that is challenging the traditional dominance of the West. You have had the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Okay. Thereafter, you're looking at the after effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Resultantly, you have had an economic slowdown. Okay. Global economic slowdown has followed after that. Do you realize? So now countries are essentially looking at the BRICS as a forum of, say, engagement, further engagement, deeper cooperation between nations. Are you able to understand that, guys? Okay. At the same time, what the whole world is seeing is something that is called de-dollarization. Okay. Make a note of this term. There are 2-3 terms that I want to just introduce it to you first, and then only we shall go ahead and understand it in particular detail. Okay. So one, make a note of is de-dollarization, and the second I want you to note down is decoupling. Okay. You will see a lot of these articles use these two words very freely. So one is de-dollarization and one is decoupling. ठीक है, इसका ध्यान दो आप लोग थोड़ा, क्योंकि इससे सवाल बैठेंगे मेंस में. प्लस ऑब्वियसली आपका अंडरस्टैंडिंग काफी इसमें इट विल बी वेरी वेरी लाइक सॉलिडिफाइड इफ यू अंडरस्टैंड de-dollarization and decoupling. Now decoupling right now, let's discuss this first. Decoupling is essentially in the context of US-China. Okay. This is straight away in the context of United States and China. Now what essentially is happening is United States is de-risking itself because it's an interconnected world, you know. All countries are, say, heavily interconnected, and especially when you consider the US. Hi Bhaskar, good morning. So when you consider the US-China interdependence, say till a few years ago, they were cooperating at a massive level. And it was only one-way cooperation. China was benefiting out of it. So what the US is now looking at is essentially to go ahead and de-risk itself. Okay. That it is going to be independent of the Chinese influence, the Chinese realm of influence. Yes, the US is just taking a step back now. So that is decoupling. Now that is happening, say, in military engagement, obviously. It is happening in economic engagement. It is also having in, say, the perspectives when it comes to, say, climate financing and environment. Deepak, good morning. Welcome, welcome guys. Are you able to get that? So first understand the decoupling, because again it's a very specific concept. We'll do a whole video on this. We'll do a whole class, क्योंकि इसके सारे perspectives आप सोचोगे ना, those are very immense. And जो questions बनते हैं इससे मतलब means में it's advisable that you prepare well for this topic. Okay. So one is decoupling, and then one thing is the de-dollarization. These are two not connected things at all. Independent है ये thoughts. Decoupling is in the sense of US-China relations, whereas de-dollarization is to do with reducing dependency of countries on the dollar. Okay. Dependencies of countries on US dollar. In fact, there's a quote by the Russian finance minister. I was reading about it last night, so I'll tell you. The Russian finance minister, obviously it's Russian, so you'll have to take it with a pinch of salt. But what he's saying is that every night I wake up from my sleep to think as to why we trade in US dollars. Okay. And that sentiment has been echoed by many other countries. You have had the Kenyan president also go ahead and on record and say, the Chinese have indicated that they are more than comfortable to trade in, say, the other US dollars se chhod ke kuch aur bhi, preferably in their Chinese renminbi or whatever it is called. ठीक है. So the de-dollarization is to do with reducing the dependence of countries on US dollars, that you trade in US dollars. The question arises, why? Why do you trade in the US dollar? Can someone tell me in the chat? What could be the reason? What could be the reason, guys? Let's go ahead. मुझे आप बताना आंसर चैट पे. Okay, so let's look at the common currency benefits now. We'll discuss the US dollar trade, but let's look at the BRICS common currency benefits. This migration from this intergovernmental platform to this, say, monetary union, you know, or this cooperation on a monetary level, what are the ramifications? We'll take a look at it. Obviously, it's not a monetary union yet, okay? ये हुआ नहीं है. This is being proposed. Rian, to a certain extent, you are correct. See, the currency that most countries use is because the currency is backed by something. You know, the credibility is associated with something. So you realize that the US has the highest reserves right now, the highest GDP. It's something around, say, 27 or 28 trillion dollars. We are at around 3.5. Obviously, that is the highest. Plus, someone mentions, Madhusudan has very well written about the SWIFT system, that they control the international financial architecture also. Yes, SWIFT system is a very good example. Bretton Woods, again, all the institutions are, say, the origination and the control of that lies with the United States. And at the same time, all of these institutions, this mechanism, SWIFT system, all of that is backed by what? Hard power. That they invest heavily in their military. You realize how linked it is. Mere having these institutions and not having the backing of hard power, would it work, guys? Tell me. Why does the US dollar work? Because it has these mechanisms which it backs by hard power. So it's got the carrot and the stick. You either follow my way or it's the highway. समझ रहे हो आप? So it's quite linked. I'm happy that you guys were able to identify most of the answers. Good. सबको ही ना ये इसका नोट बना लो. Okay. Then you can expand on it. लिख लेना आप कहीं पे. So what's the benefit of having a common currency for BRICS? Firstly, it will boost intra-BRICS trade and it will eliminate the high dollar conversion cost of international transaction. See, this is why people are now looking at de-dollarization. Okay. What you told me right now was why the dollar was being used. Now what I am telling you is that why people are, say, going ahead and moving away from the dollar. That essentially it is to do with the high dollar conversion cost of international transactions. Okay. Each of the BRICS countries supports this new initiative for different reasons. Now let's understand the will. The problem of will we understand. No? Why are the countries doing what they are doing? Rian, that's true. It's true. What you are identifying is true, but it is still in spite of what you have mentioned, no, the budget ceiling. In spite of that, the US maintains it because the whole system, the architecture is controlled by it. And it can obviously raise its debt ceiling till the time the day does not come. Okay. But then you have to realize the structural work that USA has done. That is the way you go ahead and say maintain hegemony. If it has done well for these say 50, 60 years, it has obviously put a system in place. And now the Chinese are looking to say counter that system. Okay. So we'll realize. So let's realize the motivations first. Okay. Why is it that each country is supporting this currency? Why is it? So Russia and China are at the forefront of the de-dollarization from their political interests because they do not like US. एक तो उनका political consideration है. Russia is also trying to avoid US sanctions by challenging the dollar-dominated financial system. China, why does it have its interest in de-dollarization? Because it wants its own currency. Obviously, if it is directly challenging US, it is going to challenge not just on the military front, but also on the economic front. It is wanting कि मेरा अपना currency बढ़े भाई. ठीक है. Now, please understand this interplay between Russia and China. There is another very big reason why Russia will support, say, China's move for making, say, the renminbi the international currency. The very basic reason for that is that 17% of, say, the Russian forex or whatever it is, forex is in Chinese currency. Okay. They heavily are in this, invested in this. So in spite of the fact, आपने recently अभी पढ़ा होगा कि India and Russia signed a currency trade agreement. Yes? Rupee trade agreement was signed recently. समझ रहे हो? So now, do you realize, would Russia follow through on, say, trading in rupee if its own, if it is heavily dependent on the Chinese? आप समझ रहे हो? So, in spite of that agreement, India is still looking at a situation where the Chinese currency will gain precedence over the Indian rupee. And that is just with your best friend, Russia. All-weather friend है हमारा. ठीक है? So that has to be factored in when, say, you write an answer on, say, the emergence of Indian rupee and whether it can become a potential challenger to, say, the US dollar. That in spite of, say, our bilateral agreements with Russia, you will find a situation where Russia will be much more keen to go ahead and trade in the Chinese currency rather than Indian currency because of their own situation. समझ रहे हो? Clear? So look at it, 17% of its reserves are in this currency, the Chinese currency. Russia has a greater preference for transacting in the Chinese currency. It's a very good point to write, especially if you're writing about the emergence of rupee. Okay, if you're writing about the emergence of rupee and if you're identifying a challenge to it, you are going to write about this. Okay, if you include these points in your answer, no, there is no way that आपका मार्क्स काटा जा सकता है. मतलब वो 50% हाईएस्ट मिलते हैं ना, वो 50% आपको मिल जाएगा of the total marks for sure. Okay, India, Brazil, South Africa, why are they motivated? Reduced dollar dominance will make it easier for these nations facing a dollar crunch to repay their debts. It just helps us. Okay, which is why a common currency may be desired by India. But the problem is this: can BRICS come up with a new global currency? Right now, what we are looking at is the currency just for themselves, for these inter-member trading. But can that currency, say the BRICS currency, we'll call it B, can B replace the dollar? Okay, because again, if you look at the statistics, there is a fair argument for that. So let's look at the statistics now. Little bit of stats. So BRICS global currency, again a question for the mains guys. Okay, इस बार तो जो लोग मेंस लिख रहे हैं वो लोग पढ़ ही लें भाई साहब. You'd be best advised to read about it. Okay. So the greater economic size. Let's look at the BRICS as an economic model. Okay. US dollar accounts for 90% of global foreign exchange transactions, forex. Okay. Why? Because US is the world's largest economy with a GDP of around 25 trillion, 24% of the world's GDP. जो मैंने आपको अभी कहा था. Because they are the biggest, economy. 25 trillion, look at this. We are around what, 3.7, I think, $3.7 trillion. I think recently I read an article yesterday itself. Where are we standing right now, guys? 3.75, I believe. Just let me know in the chat very quickly. So you realize they're 9 times the power that we are, economic power. मुझे बताइए, what's our current year GDP? Let me know, guys, very quickly. 3.75, I believe. I just read an article yesterday. Yesterday or day before. Okay. So the greater a country's national income, the greater the demand for its assets, which leads to a greater need for holding that country's currency. This is the logic. समझ रहे हो आप? That if you have, say, that amount of influence, there's a lot of credibility associated with that, which is why countries come ahead and say, trade in your particular instrument or currency. समझ रहे हैं आप? The BRICS bloc now. Let's look at how BRICS fares against the US. So it's one side you have the US versus BRICS. Okay. What's the challenge now? BRICS, on the other hand, has a GDP of over $32 trillion, 31% of the world GDP. Collectively, BRICS project a much greater economic heft. So you realize, as a collective unit, BRICS can easily challenge the United States. However, it is easier said than done, because this group again has, say, some converging interests, but member states have many diverging interests, especially when you consider in that this group considers India and China. And with the recent standoffs in Galwan and all of that has happened, the Chinese aggression, a lot of cooperation from Indian and Chinese side must have, diverged straight away. Even if said that momentum was building up for ecosystem was being created for convergence, अभी वो ऐसा करोगे तो फिर straight away there's a divergence. समझ रहे हो? Rian, is it $3.75 trillion our GDP? Let me know. Okay. So growing financial outreach. Now US has a large and sophisticated financial system. So you have had the SWIFT system that someone mentioned in the chat for the international banking system, in fact. It has financial institutions capable of handling complex international transactions. All of the institutions, the IMF, the World Bank, to a certain extent the United Nations also. Okay. All of these institutions, you will see that the US influence is palpable. Okay. You will see that. In fact, if you go ahead and look at the UN recruitment, how one gets selected in the United Nations, you will see certain positions are only offered to US citizens. Okay. So there is a lot of influence of the United States when it comes to United Nations. All right. So when you're controlling these organizations, when you're controlling the banking system, what is essentially going to happen? New banks are going to come up. So the new development bank was started by the BRICS in 2014 as an alternative to the World Bank and IMF. Straight away. Since the hegemony of these institutions was so complex and so large, okay, you realize straight away other emerging powers will come and say, okay, why should there be a monopoly when it comes to, say, financial institutions? Okay. Let's come up with our own body. Eventually, we'll strengthen it to an extent where we're able to challenge this. Now, in 2014, no one would have imagined a state or a situation where these 5 countries coming together in just less than 9 years You are looking at 20 plus member countries that have said, okay, we want to be a part of BRICS. Okay. Thanks, Rian. Thanks, Kodur. समझ रहे हो? That more institutions are now levitating towards the BRICS, more countries. Okay. So let's go ahead. Let's look at this. The NDB's contingent reserve arrangement, बहुत ही important point है. From the pre-perspective, make sure you note of this. Especially in a year when we are discussing BRICS and SCO, काफ़ी दफ़ा इसके बारे में बात हो रहा है. ये सब ध्यान रखोगे आप. The NDB's contingent reserve arrangement liquidity mechanism has attracted many developing countries to join BRICS. Whereas look at this, the problem of IMF. The structural adjustment program जो हमने भी लिया था, we also did the same thing in 1991. The opening, the LPG reforms came as a consequence of this. समझ रहे हो? So now this worked for us, but there have been instances where it hasn't worked. Okay. So the this program mandates countries to reduce government expenditure and increase privatization. Straight away, one problem with this is when you're reducing government expenditure, which means you're not spending on your public, you often see a nosedive when it comes to, say, education, when it comes to health. You know, the people factors go for a toss. The people are directly affected by the structural adjustment program because government spending is limited. अब आप अपने लोगों पे ही पैसा नहीं खर्च कर पाओगे तो फिर पब्लिक सोशल कैपिटल कैसे बनेगा? How are you going to improve the quality of life? Right? So the structural changes takes time to percolate down to, say, the results of that to percolate down. Okay. So the IMF's structural adjustment program, the resulting inability to frame independent policies. See this impinging on sovereignty bit, that you are telling member states or nation states to what to do. So you're impinging on the sovereignty of the state. It forces such nations to turn to the NDB, which is why now more member states are looking at NDB, IMF, the World Bank. In spite of, say, being the dominant players, they are now seeing the emergence of challenger institutions. Okay. The NDB has also issued bonds denominated in local currencies. These developments indicate the BRICS' growing financial outreach. You see how it is becoming a more inclusive. It is becoming a more inclusive body. इसको note करिए please. Make a note of this. I'll just write this down again. This point is better because you have to write why. It is an inclusive body or inclusive approach. Okay. This is one of the biggest advantages of what the BRICS is doing right now. Okay. That it is looking at member states and not telling them कि हाँ सुनो मैं ज्ञानी हूँ मैं ही बोलूँगा क्या करना है तुमको. No. Okay, we'll give you what you want at a term, at a mutually understandable term. Whereas IMF and World Bank, it is unidirectional. All the gyan comes from there and only after that will the paisa come. Okay. Let's look at this now. The military strength. So all of this, the two things that we discussed now, the currency plus the financial systems. Now these always need to be backed with hard power, guys. Okay. Never in isolation will either of these work. If you're just good at this but not good at this and not good at this, you are still not going to be a major challenger. You are still going to be an emerging economy only. What's the difference? You know, some might ask at times. So what's the difference between, say, a developed nation and a developing nation? So a developing nation will often say, when you look at the financial aspect, it will be like uska ek hi score hoga isme se. It will probably have one instrument that it has taken care of. The other two will be badly affected. And this is in the finance. Similarly, you look at the people, their health indicators, their social indicators. Okay. All of that taken into context, then you realize, okay, a country is developed or is it still developing? Okay. US reinforces the dollar's position as an assertive and unchallenged global currency with hard power. Their military strength. This is what hard power is now, guys. Hard power is what? How big military do you have? How efficient and modern it is? How integrated are the military forces? Which is why you see in India now, there is a focus on theatre. पहले क्या होता था? Command system था. अब theatre dominance पे है. We'll discuss about that also. It's very interesting. As to why we are doing what we are doing. What is the cold start doctrine? Huh? How is it different from, say, offensive, defensive, which the current NSA talks about? It's a very interesting topic. But anyways, we'll save that for some other day. So hard power, unless you have the military strength, all of this is not going to make a difference regardless of whether you have it or not. So now the BRICS bloc includes Russia, China, India, which have the strongest militaries after the US. Make a note of this index, guys. The Global Firepower Index. Prelims perspective again. Pre के लिए तो एकदम देखिए आप ये. Especially in a BRICS year, you have to know about Global Firepower Index, which essentially ranks military strengths. You know, how modern, how efficient, how powerful you are. So in that you have obviously US, that is first. India is ranked 4th. Okay. The possibility though of a military alliance was ruled out in 2018. Also, India-China standoff. So you realize, as an organization, they have got this sorted, they have got this sorted. However, there is not a lot of convergence here. Hi Rahul, how are you? Welcome, welcome. Do you understand that? That as an organization, if you're looking at say BRICS versus USA debate, okay, one advantage the USA have, in spite of the fact that BRICS is a larger economic model and a larger economic body, is that the US still is going to have the hard power with it. That there will not come a situation where BRICS will directly challenge the United States militarily, given that the alliance that India and US share, also the divergence that India and China have, also the relationship of India and Russia. Okay. Too many factors will pull this group apart, which means the hard power is compromised in this debate. All right, let's go forward. So now India's challenges, the political intentions behind de-dollarization. India will be wary of this. That are we going to play into the hands of Russia and China? Okay, especially again when considering that Russia has 17% of its reserves in the Chinese currency. Okay. At the same time, you are looking at increased dependence on China, because eventually, if you are going to have an economic model where all of these countries are fully functioning together, things are going to become easier for trade between them, no? Which means you are looking at a system again where say Chinese products will flood Indian market, which was one of our key reasons why we did not enter into the RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. Last year it was there. Okay. ASEAN countries plus China was there. India was supposed to be entering this particular agreement, and at the last moment India pulled out, thankfully. You know, so a lot of articles will tell you, oh, we lost access to for our MSMEs for convergence with ASEAN countries, this and that. But the major problem, and rightly so identified by the Indian side, was that this will essentially make sure that we become the dumping ground for Chinese products. So if our stance is so hard that we have pulled out from this, isko likho ek particular regional comprehensive economic partnership. Okay, India pulled out of this. We didn't become a member of this at the last moment, guys. Okay, the whole point was that we should not become a dumping ground for Chinese products. So if our stance is so hard, okay, that we are willing to pull out of multilateral agreements, do you think that this is going to become a reality? Because our stance is clear, that we cannot have a situation where we are directly dependent on China for, even though right now our trade deficit is rising, but the general sentiment is that it can't be that way. So when we are looking at say decoupling from China, would this essentially make sure that are interlinked more with China? It's directly contrary to the Indian expectation. Okay, India's trade deficit with China, see, if we were to cooperate on all of these financial levels, तो हमारा trade deficit तो और बढ़ता जाएगा. Trade surplus we have with the United States, trade deficit with China. The trade deficit with China, the amount is bigger than the trade surplus with the United States. Do you think India will go ahead and do this? No, absolutely not. Okay. And the risk arising from exchange rate volatilities. If you have a common currency, the benefits of that you all will share equally, but the loss of that also will be shared equally. Which means when you have a country like South Africa, with its own currency rand, okay, so the steep decline in the value of the South African rand, it becomes essential to set a band within which a BRICS member currency ought to fluctuate. But can you do this? Can you set up a band in a free market? You can't. So which means you are risking yourself. If you go ahead and have a common currency, when the good times are there, Kingfisher good times, everyone will have fun. But the moment the ship sinks, you are looking at your own Indian currency or your Indian economy getting directly affected. Now, at a time when the whole world is experiencing a slowdown, Indian economy is doing well, why would we take this step? Would it be a rational step to take and invest in a common currency in the BRICS when Indian economy just by itself is outperforming, say, its global peers? Okay, it's a very interlinked topic, but go ahead and read the articles on any article about this. You will get the gist of it essentially. That this is what the Indian position is, this is our reservation. Okay, all right. Next, let's look at the BRICS membership, the second topic of discussion that is to happen in Durban. Okay. Now, India's position is that we are not very keen, on new members. Okay. In fact, Dr. S. Jaishankar has said that we will evaluate whether there is a need for new members, and that decision should be taken in the interests of each nation individually as well as BRICS as a collective body. So essentially, in fewer words, saying that wait, we will not express a direct sentiment, we'll wait and watch. Okay. So in this forthcoming BRICS summit, we are looking at these nations: South Africa, Indonesia, UAE, Egypt and Argentina. Okay. They are looking at coming into the BRICS. All of them essentially supported by China and also the tacit support of Russia. Now what is, if they are coming in through the support of China and Russia, what is in it for them? You will realize that, okay, 20 more nations have expressed interest, but you realize many applicants are part of the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. You see what China is doing here now? It is called hijacking of institution. That you have a particular goal that you are working for, that your president is absolutely crazy about, okay, and to make that a reality, to make sure that your agenda is being pushed on every international platform of relevance. BRICS, an international platform of relevance that is looking to counter the G7. Okay. Straight away, if you have, say, member states with which you have economically integrated yourself at a much deeper level, they will speak your language, no? Why will they speak their own language? Plus, you can coerce countries to take your viewpoint. Another Indian reservation. Why membership should be viewed objectively and not just we have to expand. Okay. Russia-Ukraine crisis plus the fear of missing out has resulted in alignment of applicants with stated aim of the group. Okay. Given after the Russia-Ukraine crisis, there has been a geopolitical realignment. You are seeing, say, US now being directly challenged by Russia, and it's essentially to do with US's own inward-looking policy, that it does not want to get its hands dirty yet. पर नहीं होता है वो, एक हिंदी में कहावत है कि द्वंद्व कब तक टाला जाए. Same thing is going to happen there. How long will you delay the inevitable? If the Russia-Ukraine crisis has to come to an end, you need a bigger play of like support by US. But then again, that's for the future. We'll see. So last year's BRICS declaration reflects India's concern that any addition of new members must follow the carefully thought out objective criteria of membership, mutually discussion, and that there should be a consensus on new members. Which means that if India is opposed to the entry of certain parties, that party does not enter. And again, this is to essentially counter the Chinese influence. You know, Russia is playing along with Chinese. Why? Because again, it's economically much more integrated with China. However, it does not want to risk upset India because again, long-standing friendship, defense deal, lots of money. So it's a careful interplay and balance that you have to do. All at the same time, making sure that the Chinese influence in BRICS is as limited as possible. Not just in the military sense, but also in the economic sense. Military to hoga hi nahi, economic and financial institution sense. Clear? Are you able to get this, guys? So if you're able to get that, well, I had a question for you. Where was it? Did I not write it today? Okay, I'll upload the question on my Telegram group, guys. So if you have any question, you let me know. Meanwhile, this admission for this particular P2I course, finishing on the 10th till 5th, you have a particular offer that's going on where you get these 2 primary books written by Anil Swarup sir, one of the foremost authors, again a retired coal secretary to the government of India, who's written 2 very popular books on ethics. So obviously not the only reason why you should join this course, because this prelims to interview initiative is the deep dive at a level at what I teach you. Okay. It's exactly that, but for each and every topic. From the prelims perspective up until the mains and interview perspective, it is provided to you. And thereafter, you have a host of other things I've told you about. It's continuous evaluation, monitoring, making sure that UPSC's preparation is something that has to be taken very seriously. That it's not all gyan and motivation for 1 hour and then just I go back home. That's not how it works. There needs to be a tangible benefit that you should provide to the student. Okay. So go ahead and use this code. The classes are beginning for this morning batch, by the way. Subah hongi iske classes, and God willing, I'll be a part of it. And so we'll prepare together for your preparation. Okay. So go ahead, sign up. Use the code BA Live. All right. Now this photo, guys, I am talking about religious syncretism. Again, a topic that you should prepare for the essay if you're writing this year, as well as for the art and culture bit. Okay. Make a note of this. A very brief a brief discussion on religious syncretism. So this photo that I'm showing you is of the Mahakal Mandir. Okay. This photo is of the Mahakal temple, which is a temple in Darjeeling. Okay. It's the presiding deity, in fact, Mahakal Mandir. So I want to show you this photo. So on one side you have the Hindu priest, and the other side you have the Buddhist Lama. Okay. And this is again a very unique photo, because see, we often talk about unity in diversity and religious harmony and all of that. But then a glowing evidence of that is this particular mandir, where you have both the priests or both the religious representatives of the religions sitting together face to face and praying at the same God. Okay. So this is like a once in a, like you don't see many evidences of this. But then this is what India is. Now, what is religious syncretism? आपको ऐसा फोटो ना दुनिया भर में कहीं नहीं मिलेगा. That you have two religious representatives sitting together in harmony, coexisting and praying to the same God. All right. So let's look at religious syncretism now. What does it mean? The blending of religious belief systems. Okay. That is religious syncretism. So where you have, say, like, just think of yourself only. You would have celebrated Christmas. You would have gone to your friend's place on Eid. You know, your friends would have come to your place on Diwali. You would have engaged in, say, Lori, when it happens in January. All of that is what? You're enjoying, or you are partaking in, say, beliefs and rituals which are different from yours, yet there is a coexistence, a harmony that exists. At the same time, you find many gods are common. For example, you find in Buddhism, Bhagwan Buddha, Lord Buddha. So now in Vaishnavite system, okay, in the Vaishnavite system, what you find is that Buddha is considered to be the 9th avatar of Vishnu. Okay. Now you will have, say, many of these foreign historians dispute this. So Wendy Doninger is one, she disputes it. But regardless of that, what our interest is that there are books that say this. Okay. For example, there is a book called Harivamsa. Make a note of this. It's a Sanskrit language text which is considered as the appendix or supplement to Mahabharata. Okay. It's a book that has around 1200 shlokas, I believe. Harivamsa. Okay. The author is unknown, by the way. So go ahead and see, look at this. It also mentions about this whole Buddha being an avatar of Vishnu. So you have this situation wherein, see, this happens. That you have two religious priests sitting face to face and praying to their version of the God. So the Hindu priest is praying to Lord Shiva there, Bhagwan Shiva, whereas the Buddhist one is obviously praying to his God, Bhagwan Buddha. So you realize that is religious syncretism. So you have to make a note of this. India, known for its rich cultural tapestry and religious diversity, has long embraced the idea of syncretism and multiculturalism. ये आपको essay paper के लिए ये बहुत important topic है. Because more often than not, you find in the essay paper, the topics are of the philosophical bent. So it's important that you go ahead and make yourself aware of these particular evidences so that you can use them in your answers. क्योंकि philosophy में क्या होता है? Abstract topic है. It's an abstract concept. So eventually, you should not run out of words. After you have explained the theory, you have to present evidence. So an evidence of this particular temple in Darjeeling will be a very fair evidence to give. So I would suggest, make a note of this if you are, say, explaining religious syncretism in India. Also the Gandhiji model, Sarva Dharma Prarthana Sabha. See how you are going to link the Sarva Dharma Prarthana Sabha of Gandhiji, where all people of all faiths would come together. In fact, even today, you have, say, on 2nd of October, and when he was eventually martyred, on both these days, in the Gandhi Ghat, in the Gandhi, this, in New Delhi, where he's laid to rest. I forget that place's name. What is it called? Gandhi Sthal or something. So you have Sarva Dharma Prarthana Sabha that happens, which was essentially what he used to do, no? He would have people of all faiths come together, sing, chant, pray together, so that you form that religious bond, that you learn to respect and you learn to move forward as a singular cohesive unit. Right? That is often said, that what you don't understand at times is what you fear. So to remove that level of misunderstanding, one way is to have these kind of interfaith meetings, interfaith prayer meetings. You must have seen when the new parliament was commissioned recently, an interfaith prayer meeting was held, because that building represents what? All individuals of India. So that is religious syncretism, guys. It acts as a glue that holds this mosaic together, fostering an environment of mutual respect and peaceful coexistence. Right? So if you're given any of these topics, let's say, ask you to say, identify India's religious or multiculturalism it talks about, go ahead and mention about the religious syncretism bit. It's often a very ignored part of the whole concept. Okay. This syncretism is evident in various aspects. So look at this. We all have done this, no? We go to langars, our friends come home during Diwali, we go to our friend's place during Eid. For some families have Christmas cakes. So it does not mean they're followers of that particular faith. It's that just this mutual respect, coexistence. We enjoy all forms, all arts. We look for an excuse to enjoy, essentially. छुट्टी मिला है, चलो enjoy करते हैं. ठीक है? So that is syncretism. Make a note of this. And with that, my dear students, we come to the end of this particular class. 2 topics. The BRICS one, extremely important. I suggest you go ahead and revisit the whole slide, because we have discussed what we have essentially discussed for the BRICS topic. Okay, is essentially to do with currency plus financial systems. Okay, plus the membership. Now these 3 are going to be the key goals that the BRICS will look to achieve in the forthcoming Durban summit. So you will see that most of the articles now will be talking about these individually. Okay. So now what I have given you is the whole end-to-end of all of these 3 tangents. Now read any article on BRICS. You will be able to make head and tail of it for sure. The question of the mains question, I will upload it in my channel say around half an hour from now, around 10 a.m. Go ahead, answer that question. Some of you answered to the question yesterday. I received 22 answers. So it's a new record, in fact. Okay, it's the highest so far. I'm eternally grateful for all of you who considered to send me the answers. Send the answers for this question that I'll upload on my Telegram channel. I have responded to around 12 of them. 10 बाकी हैं, वो अभी मैं कर दूंगा. ठीक है? And leave me a like. If you learned something, no, please leave me a like. Molly Shri, thank you. Thank you, Molly Shri. It's very kind of you. I'm glad you're learning. That's the whole motto, that you should come away with some takeaway after this 1 hour. So leave me a like if you like this whole session, if it was of benefit to you. That's my only motivation, guys. Okay, I shall see you this evening at 9 p.m. for a live session on a topic of interest, as well as tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. when tomorrow we'll do a question oriented session. Okay, so what I've decided is for tomorrow we will look at around, say, a number of sizable MCQs, so that we test ourselves on what we have been doing so far. Okay, questions need to be prioritized a bit. We have done a fair amount of theory since in the last 40 days. अब हम लोग बढ़ाएंगे, थोड़ा सवाल पे फोकस करेंगे. ठीक है? संदीपन, आलेखा, कोडर, दीपक, thank you so much, all of you. It's very kind of you, and I shall see you guys. Okay, stay safe. Answer the question that I'll be putting on my Telegram channel. ठीक है? Thanks, Bulbul. Take care, everyone. Bye.